It's been over a year since Anthony Todt was arrested and accused of killing his wife and 3 children at their Celebration home. During a hearing at the Osceola County Courthouse Wednesday, a judge scheduled Todt's upcoming murder trial for a 3-week period starting September 27th. Todt is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of animal cruelty in the killings of his wife, 42-year-old Megan Todt, the couple's children, 13-year-old Alec, 11-year-old Tyler, 4-year-old Zoe, and their family dog. Authorities went to the Todt home in January of 2020 to arrest Todt on insurance fraud charges related to his Connecticut physical therapy business. That's when they discovered the bodies, which they believe had been there for weeks before they were found. According to autopsy reports, the victims had stab wounds and toxic amounts of Benadryl in their bodies. Detectives said Todt initially confessed to the killings, but he has since blamed his wife for the deaths in letters he's written from jail.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. It's Michelle here with another video on the Watts family murders, but this has got a little bit of a twist, because I want to compare what happened in the Watts case with that of Anthony Todt. Anthony Todt's, it's an active case, it's going to trial. My dogs are going mad. Oh, there's a big dirty puddle there. I'm walking around the edge of a wheat field, by the way. You can see wheat starting to ripen as far as we can see. So I want you to imagine that what happened in the Todt case happened with Chris Watts. And I want you to consider, and I'm going to leave you with the conclusion, that Weld County would have been in real trouble. The DA and the assistant DA took a huge gamble in what they did in the Watts case. And I want you to think about why they might have taken that gamble. So using the Todt case as an example, because it's similar to Watts in many ways, let's discuss this. So, for those of you not familiar with the Todt case, on the 13th of January 2020, the bodies of Anthony Todt's wife, his 3 children, Alexander, Tyler and little Zoe, who was only 4 years old, and their family dog, Breezy, were all found dead. The autopsies revealed they'd been stabbed to death, they'd been given huge amounts of Benadryl, and they were decomposing and had been there at least 2 weeks. At least 2 weeks. It's my opinion and my opinion only that he did this at Christmas. Now, on the 29th of December, a welfare check had been done at the home. I think it was Anthony Todt's sister who was concerned because she'd not heard from the family. And Anthony had said that they were all sick with flu, so that therefore no one else could come to the phone. So welfare check was done. And I believe they went again early January, and they didn't get entrance to the home. Now, on the 13th of January, when they did get entrance to the home, it was to serve a warrant for the fraud. There was hundreds of thousands of dollars of fraud that was going on in Anthony Todt's physical therapy practice. He ran 2 clinics in Connecticut. So he was living the high life at weekends in Celebration, Florida, with this beautiful home, this beautiful family. He was flying every weekend from Connecticut to Florida. They had other homes, they had a condo. Once he was taken into custody, he was taken to the hospital because he was threatening to harm himself, and apparently he confessed to those murders. Now, he reneged on that confession. Once he was in custody, he reneged on that confession. Now, what I don't know is how long it was. Some of you might know, who know the Todt case better than I do. How long was it from Anthony Todt confessing when he was originally taken in to hospital, and then him reneging on that confession? Because that's important. Now, he reneged on the confession and said that the wife, Megan, had actually killed all the children and the dog, and then he witnessed her killing herself. She was found with an 8-inch stab wound in her stomach. Who does that? She'd served the children Benadryl pie. Who does that? There was these bizarre claims. But he's pleading not guilty, and he's set for trial on the 27th of September, so I'm going to be following this case very, very closely when the time comes for the trial. So expect lots of videos about this, because I'm intrigued by this case. This is a man who was in a colossal amount of debt, who took out his entire family, allegedly. Right, he's innocent till he's proven guilty. Allegedly took out his entire family. The act of living with these bodies for at least 2 weeks is beyond comprehension. Beyond comprehension. But yet that's exactly what he did. So this is in my view, someone who is unwell. And in many ways, it's more gruesome than the Watts case. It's had much less attention. I mean, not a lot's been released. Obviously, it's an active case. It's going to trial. But it's not had the attention that the Watts case got. Right from almost day one, the Watts case got lots of attention. Now, let's turn to the Watts case. And on the evening of the 15th of August, 2018... Chris confessed to killing Shanann because she killed the girls. He was arrested on that basis. He was adamant he did not kill his daughters. Yet it was released to the press that he confessed to all, which is a minor point when we consider the rest. Now, on the morning of the 16th of August, Chris had his first court appearance, where there was some argument between the prosecution, Assistant DA Wren, and the defence, that the judge made an order that police notes had to be kept, and they had to wait at least 48 hours before they did the autopsies. No, they didn't. They did the autopsies the day after, and the defence were even denied, at first, they were even denied the reports, the autopsy reports, which is a problem. But get this.
With continuing it, I just don't want there to be any time-sensitive issues between now and next Tuesday that we should have handled today.
I think we need to address it today. As I indicated, Judge, at this point there's not an autopsy scheduled or autopsies. I don't know when that might happen. I don't know if it would happen before Tuesday or not. With respect to this motion, and does the court want to address Mr. Merson's concerns about clearing the courtroom, given the sealed nature of this, or may I speak briefly? Well,
it was I think it's based on the sealing of the affidavit in support of the warrantless arrest, and so it was your motion to seal. So if you think the reasons why you requested the affidavit to be sealed are going to be compromised, we could do this in camera. If you believe it's not, then we can talk about it publicly.
I'm not worried about the compromising nature of the affidavit. I will tell the court and make a record that the prosecution has provided Mr. Merson with a copy of the affidavit, despite the fact that it was sealed to the public.
I am concerned about this being discussed in a non-in-camera setting. My concerns revolve around the issues I brought up in the objections to expanded media coverage. It's an ongoing investigation at this point. I have concerns about, what would be discussed and how that would implicate Mr. Watts' right to a fair trial and his due process right. So my request is that the court seal the courtroom so we can discuss this.
Mr. Wren?
Leave that to the discretion of the court.
It seems to me, based on everything I've heard, that the affidavit is going to be released at some point. It was the prosecution who requested the sealing of the affidavit. They're not concerned about this being compromised, the investigation being compromised. And so I think we can talk about this publicly. Mr. Wren?
And when you say talk about this, are we still talking about
Yes.
D17,
Yes.
which was also filed under seal?
Yes.
So with respect to paragraph number 3, Judge, our concerns relate to the way this is worded. As the court knows, the pathologist goes through a very extensive process when conducting an autopsy, much of which is governed by statute. I think most of what he's asking for is standard procedure for an autopsy conducted in this jurisdiction and would be done. However, I have concerns about the way this is phrased in that it orders collection of trace DNA and touch DNA from certain areas of bodies that at this point we don't even have, frankly. Second, we don't know if that trace DNA is going to even exist if we have the bodies. So there's no way to order us to find something that may or may not exist.
I think when I read the motion, it essentially is putting the prosecution on notice that at some point they may be in possession of exculpatory evidence, and it's their duty to make reasonable efforts to preserve that and ultimately provide that to the defense. And so I think they're on notice by the mere fact that we're talking about this, that Mr. Wren got a copy of the motion, and if this becomes an issue later on, we can litigate this, and there's some pretty significant sanctions for the destruction of exculpatory evidence. Okay, so that will be the ruling of the court.
But the thing that could have absolutely broken the Watts case was...
Your Honor, may I ask one clarifying question? Because the way that the motion is titled talks about the collection of touch or trace DNA at 2825 Saratoga Trail as well as during the autopsy, but the body of the motion does not. I want to make sure that Mr. Merson is aware that the home where the homicides were alleged to have occurred has been released by law enforcement, was released as of about midnight last night. So even as we stand today, we are not in a position to be able to go back in and collect trace DNA from that home. So I just want to make clear that, that the ruling of the court does not require us to do anything affirmative with respect to the home.
And Mr. Wren advised me that the government is no longer in control of the home, so I'm aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
2 hours after he made that, I'm going to call it a partial confession, they released the house. Now, D.A. Rourke at the court hearing said, oh, well, we can't do DNA now because law enforcement released the house. We don't have access to it. Now, put yourself in the position of Chris Watts, if you can. I think I can, right? He's sitting there, listening to this. Now, where's Cassie gone now? Cassie, good girl. Now, if Chris Watts had had his wits about him, if he had his wits about him, he wouldn't have done this, would he? But if he had his wits about him, he would have sat there listening to this and thought, hold on a minute, they can't get DNA from the house. So why don't I renege on my confession? Because I've never confessed to killing the girls. I could say, ooh, I'm slipping into this mud. I could say I was under duress, I was out of my mind with worry, and I made a false confession, exactly like Anthony Tote did. Why didn't Watts do that? I mean, I know he didn't. I know we're using the hindsight bias and we're imagining things that did not happen. But just imagine, right, if Chris had reneged on that confession the day after, what would have happened to the Watts case? The DA's office took a huge gamble. Why is my question? Why did they keep themselves open? They opened themselves up to a massive problem by releasing that crime scene. They'd never secured the crime scene in the first place. If that had gone to trial with a decent defence team, surely, beyond a reasonable doubt, would not have been possible. And Chris could well have got off with it. So why? Why did they do that? Stupidity? Corruption? They knew they got Chris exactly where they wanted him. They knew they could basically deny him of his rights if he reneged on his confession. What had they told him? To keep him quiet? Or is he really that stupid? So I'd welcome your opinions on this below. Hope you've enjoyed my little walk through the wheat field. It's very early on Tuesday morning, Tuesday the 13th of July. I hope you're well, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye folks.